Good afternoon, everyone. We are waiting for folks to join. So sort of settle in and get comfortable, and we'll be starting up here in just a few minutes. It almost feels like it's slowing down already. I expect a few more here, so let's just give it another minute to see if we can get a few more folks to join. I'm expecting a slightly larger crowd than what we currently have, so please hold as we allow others to join here. We'll get started just shortly. Good afternoon, everyone. To those of you who have just joined, we're just waiting for a few more to join. This is the October. This is the December Cyversity Engage event being sponsored by the Twin Cities chapter. And so if you were looking for a different discussion, I'm not sure where to sing yet, but this will be the Cyversity event talking about security certifications today. Thanks for joining us, and we'll get started here in just a moment. All right, I see one person here connecting to audio, and then I think we are going to get started here. All righty, I have 3 minutes after 3 p.m. Central Time, Twin Cities time. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our December Cyversity Engage event being sponsored by the Twin Cities chapter. My name is Mike Salters, and I am one of the chapter leaders here in the Twin Cities. My leadership team also consists of Katie Wolfram, as well as, so Katie is from Target, as well as we also have on the leadership team Frank Ross, who is from General Mills. Frank will be joining us a little later during today's event. And so from Frank, Katie, and myself, we want to welcome you to our last Engage event for 2021. And I think it is a very exciting topic that we're going to be covering today. So we're going to be talking all about security certifications. And hopefully we will be able to answer all those questions that you've had about why do I need a security certification? What security certifications are available? Which one should I pursue? So I have invited a group of experts who have a variety of experiences, a variety of certifications, and my hope is that they will be able to demystify this whole security certification process, and hopefully when you leave today's session, you will have a better understanding and know a lot more about how certifications can help and so what steps you need to take to obtain them. So the agenda for today is we're going to actually have Clar Rosso, who is the CEO for ISC2, just provide a brief presentation around ISC2, sort of who they are, what they do, and the role that they play in helping professionals obtain security certifications. And then we will move into a panel discussion where I have several cyber professionals who will be able to answer your questions about any questions you have related to certifications. And so once Clar sort of wraps up her presentation, I will be asking you to put questions into the chat. So start thinking about what questions you have about certifications. You can put those questions in the chat. I'll be moderating the panelists and I'll be asking those questions. So please make a point to start thinking about some of those questions, and I'll be able to sort of grab them from the chat when we get to the panel discussion. And then after the panel discussion, we are going to do some networking. And so we're just going to do some breakouts. I'll provide you with a couple questions for your breakout, and it's really just an opportunity for us to get to know each other a little bit better, and maybe ask some additional questions about certifications that we may not have gotten to as a part of the panel discussion. So that is our agenda for today. With that, I want to turn it over to Clar Rosso. Really excited to have Clar with us today. ISC2 is one of the premier organizations out there that you can tap into for education, training, and security certification. And so wanted Clar to come in and talk a little bit about sort of her organization. Hopefully many of you have already heard about it, but if not, Clar will be able to give you a good overview of her organization and some things that they have coming up here in the future. So with that, I will turn it over to Clar.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. It is fantastic for me to be here. I've actually worked with associations almost my whole career, 3 decades. And I think that chapter groups are among the most important kinds of groups in associations because they help connect you with your peers that you can learn from and move forward in your career. So I'm super excited. I'm super honored that the Cyversity Twin Cities chapter asked me to come today. So let's see, you can see my slides? I'm assuming yes. Somebody tell me if you can't see them.
Yes,
so
yes,
ISC,
yes,
okay. Yes. ISC, good. ISC2, who are we? We are the largest nonprofit membership association of certified cybersecurity professionals. We have actually, I think I tell you on my next slide how many members we have. We actually have 9 certifications currently. We are introducing a 10th. I will tell you all about that. You might want to be an early adopter of it, but we are most well known and we have the most certification holders for CISSP, which is well regarded globally as the gold standard of cybersecurity leadership certifications. We also offer continuing education and education for certification in the cybersecurity space. I actually put that word dynamic on the slide because one of the things that impresses me about the cybersecurity profession is how dynamic the learning needs are and how committed professionals are to staying up with what's the latest and greatest going on. And then we also as an organization are a global advocate for growth and success of the profession itself. We have more than 167,000 members in 175 countries. And our strategic priorities as an organization are these 4 pillars that you see here. Amplify the core, and the core for us really is certification. Are we offering the right certifications that the market demands? Are we evolving them in a timely way so that business, governments, the people that hire you are getting what they need, and they will value the certifications that you hold? Our second pillar is about promoting global competence, and that is really around that continuing education aspect of what you need to know, when you need to know it to stay at the top of your game in your cybersecurity career. Our third pillar is advocating for members in the profession. Cybersecurity is getting a lot of attention. It's gotten a lot of attention in the media this year. It's getting a lot of attention in the governmental space around the world. And there really is no association that is advocating on behalf of professionals. I came from an association that advocated for accounting and finance professionals, but nobody really does that in the cybersecurity space. And as government officials are thinking about how they regulate cybersecurity, it's really important that you have a voice at the table, and we want to be that voice for you. The other thing we do in this space is we ensure that your certification is recognized by the appropriate government bodies, that it's recognized in academia, and that it's recognized by businesses. So that helps with your hiring. It helps with you advancing within the organizations you work for. And then one more thing we did in this space this year that I'd like to talk about is we launched a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. We put together a global task force. We actually did some qualitative research. We released a great report that you can find on our website. And we also set a strategy that we are putting into place to help attract more people into the profession. And then finally, our last pillar is about enhancing the experience. And that's really about making sure that we are delivering value to our members, and that it's easy for people to engage with us. But today I'm going to talk really quickly, because the panel is going to be the best part of this, about amplifying the core. And that's really about our certifications and what the value of certifications are. And then I'll quickly go over what a couple of our certifications are. So all our certifications are experience-based certifications. They really are validating that you have the knowledge, skills, and experience in a particular area. So our certifications come with, most people take education before they take exams, but they have an education requirement, an experience requirement, and then an examination requirement. All of our certifications are accredited, which is important depending on who your employer is. Some employers could care less. For other employers, such as the Department of Defense in the US, this is really important. ANSI is a US accreditor, and IAS is actually an international accreditor. Most of our certifications are listed on the US Department of Defense 8140 and 8570 lists, which is really important for the government being a very large employer of cybersecurity professionals in the US. And then you can also see from this that we're also accredited by some international bodies, and we do have recognition beyond even these accreditations. All right, so what are our certifications? So again, CISSP, we are most well known for CISSP. When I came to work for ISC2, somebody said to me, ISC2, aren't you gonna be competing against CISSP? And I had to explain that CISSP is ISC2 and vice versa. But this is really considered ideal for security leaders and operations staff. You actually have to have 5 years of experience to earn the CISSP. And yes, we know that there are job descriptions out there asking for CISSPs and no years of experience, and we're trying to make that right. But the CISSP recognizes the information security leaders who understand cybersecurity strategy and hands-on implementation, proves that professionals have knowledge and experience to design, develop, and manage the organization's overall security posture. And I have a link there that will allow you to drill down into more detail. And the Twin Cities chapter team has a copy, a PDF copy that has all these links in them. We also have our SSCP, System Security Certified Practitioner. And this is ideal for security administrators. This certification actually aligns with many universities with a bachelor's degree. In fact, Western Governors uses the SSCP as its capstone project. So to earn a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity from Western Governors University, you actually have to pass the SSCP exam. Only 1 year of experience is required here. And this is focused on technical skills to implement, monitor, and administer IT and ICT infrastructure using information security policies and procedures. Okay, this next one is our hottest certification. It's grown almost 25% year over year, and this is our cloud security certification. And it actually, for over 2 years in a row, cloud security has been the primary area that cybersecurity professionals tell us they want to develop their skills in, because there's a lot of people out there, and I'm sure many of you are among them, who hold certificates from specific providers in the cloud space. So an AWS certificate, an Azure certificate. The pandemic and the move to an entirely remote workforce really reinforced the need for people to understand the entire cloud ecosystem. And that is what you get with this cloud certification that we have. All right, this is our sleeper certification that I hear talked about all the time, and that is it focuses on the secure software development. Comes up all the time. You hear it being talked about in government circles and other kinds of leadership circles of the need for secure software development. That is what the CSSLP is about. It's about application security skills, the ability to incorporate security practices, authentication, authorization, auditing into each phase of the software development lifecycle. And you can see the link there for that one. And this is the second to last one I'm going to show you. Last one of our existing certifications, and that's the CAP. So it's focused for authorization professionals. And it's focused specifically on advanced technical skills and knowledge to authorize and maintain information systems within the risk management framework. All right, but the one I'm super excited to tell you about is our brand new one. It's not even out yet. It's under development, and that is a new entry-level certification that we are introducing into the market in less than a month. So one of the things, we have a big workforce gap, right? There's 4.1 million cybersecurity professionals around the globe, and we have a deficit of 2.72 million cybersecurity professionals. So we need to start looking more broadly for how we recruit cybersecurity professionals. And part of that has to be bringing people into the profession that don't come from IT or security backgrounds. That is what this certification is designed to do. It is, what are the basics? What is the entry-level knowledge and skills an individual needs to have to start their cybersecurity career? We went out to industry leaders, did a job task analysis, and then validated that through a survey of over 10,000 professionals to say, yeah, this is about right. This is what the basics we need people to have so that we can get them started on their cybersecurity career. The first level of education, which is a set of 5 one-hour webinars, will be available starting January 1, and registration for our exam pilot because we have to pilot an exam before we fully launch the certification. But if you pass the pilot exam, you do earn the certification. Registration for that will open in January. The link there, if you go to that link, you can sign up and you will be notified as soon as registration is open and as more information comes available. But we're really excited about that. And I'm going to put my email in the chat, because if you have any problems with any of those links that I gave you, email me and I'll take care of you. And that's what I got. So thank you. I'm really happy to be here. And now it's time for the panel.
Talking on mute again. Thank you, Claire. That was very informative. I know that there are a few more certifications that I'm interested in, and so this has been really helpful to just sort of help me understand where to start. And so I do plan to make sure I check out ISC2 when it comes to getting prepared and moving forward with any future certifications. So really appreciate that. I do want to pause and check with the participants to see if they have any questions for Claire specifically around ISC2 that she can answer based on her presentation before we get into the panel. Obviously, you can continue to drop questions into the chat even after we start the panel. So if you don't realize your question for Claire until later, we'll make sure we can get that in. All right. We are going to pivot over to the panel. And so really excited to have these folks here today. What we're going to do is Claire is going to stay and she's going to also participate in the panel. And so that's what I was saying, if you have questions there, do not hesitate to ask the questions there. But I'm going to ask my panelists today, who have all flipped their cameras on, thank you, to introduce yourselves. And as part of your introduction, we can see your names, but tell us your names. Tell us where you work. Tell us a little bit about what you do, what your day job is, and then tell us a little bit about what current certifications that you have, what current security certifications that you have. And if you miss any of those questions, I'll remind you. I've got my list right here in front of me. We're going to pass on Claire because she's already sort of introduced herself. We all know who she is. So we're actually are going to go in alphabetical order by first name and start with Andy.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So Andy Hoff. I work at Medtronic, and my day job is I'm actually a hiring manager who also has certifications, but day job is in what we call CSIRT, Red Team, and Intelligence. So that's kind of your cyber defense organization. We do a lot of investigation into cyber incidents, as well as testing our detection and response process, as well as researching the adversaries and the threats that might want to impact Medtronic from a cybersecurity perspective. So what my current certifications are, so they are all with the SANS Institute. I have 5 of them. The first one I got was in incident handling, so that's GCIH. And then the next 3 were in forensics, so GCFE, GCFA, and GNFA. And just quickly, I'll go through those 3. GCFE was Windows-based forensics. GCFA was more advanced Windows plus Linux-based forensics from an incident response standpoint. GNFA was network forensics. And then the latest one I got was GCPI, which is cyber threat intelligence. And this will be a surprise to Claire. I didn't announce this in any of our prep, but I am going to be taking CISSP training next week. So I'm excited to take that. It's a great certification. certifications. So that's me, and those are my certifications. Looking forward to that discussion and the panel.
Yep, thanks, Andy. Melanie?
Hi, Melanie Halstensen here. I'm at Target Corporation with Mike. And my role is a lead cyber risk analyst in the focus on SOX IT. So we're really the liaisons between the auditors, internal, external audit, and the tech teams to make sure that we're having the right controls from a financial perspective related to IT. My current certifications include the CISA, and also the CISSP. And previously I was ISA certified for PCI.
Awesome. Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.
And Peju?
Now I feel weirdly incompetent right now with all this certification. So my name is Peju Nordvik. I also work at Target. I work in the cyber risk environment. Majorly, my day-to-day is vendor security. And what we're just doing is to make sure that any vendor that comes through Target, we want to ensure that their security and their IT is in compliance with what Target believes in. So we want to make sure that whatever the vendor's security and technology is also at par with Target. I have a CISA, just like Melanie also, and I just realized that at some point I had CCNA, which at the beginning of my career, I thought I was going into networking. So I got into CCNA and CCNP. Well, over time, I got into security and I got a CISA.
Great. All right. All right. Well, hopefully the intros was the hard part and the questions are the easy part, but we're going to move into the first round of questions here. I've got some questions here in the chat that I'm going to start with. And so the first question is, I'm sorry, it's a great question because I was thinking the same thing. You know, this question's from Wayne. Many of his associates passed the CIS. Many of his associates who have passed the CISSP have no idea how they passed. The exam is weirdly complex. Why is that?
I suppose that question's for me.
Well, and you know, I would say, Claire, obviously, if you can speak to that, but I would just also ask the rest of the panel, right, as you have gone through, you know, similar examinations, was there anything that resonated with you in terms of why the exams are designed the way they are?
So I'll give a quick. I will give a quick answer on it, just from a, so, you know, the more rigor behind the exam, the stronger the reputation of the exam. It seemed as like a hurdle that people have to cross, right? So if it were too easy, then it wouldn't be seen as quite the achievement as when it's slightly more difficult. I know that's not a really great answer, but that's sort of my best answer right now, because I would have to know a little bit more about the weird complexity and what's meant by that. Yeah,
I remember taking the CSSP, and one of my rules of thumb was when I got to a question I didn't know the answer, during my practice sessions, I would sort of default to, okay, well, just answer the way that Target does it, and I would get it wrong. so I realized, like, okay, you know what? There's sort of the academic answer, right? And then typically when you get into an actual company and you've got to actually implement these things, you're not going to be able to implement everything by the book, all right? And so I guess sort of realized there was sort of that difference in terms of looking at it from a purely academic perspective versus when you are sort of putting it to use in a real world organization.
I just wanted to add, so one of the things I found really helpful for the CISSP was watching Why You Will Pass the CISSP by Kelly Handerhan. It really helps you get into that mindset of the testing. So, like one of the things is if you have been practicing security and you're very technical, this is really all about like, what is the objective of the CISSP is that risk advisor. And so getting into that mindset, so not fixing the problem, but being that risk advisor perspective has been really helpful.
All right, Andy or Peju, any additional thoughts there?
No, those are good.
All right. All right, we're gonna move to the next question. So this attendee recently passed the CISSP, is an associate of ISC2, sees that there are free materials offered to members to stay current in cybersecurity, but he hasn't seen any hands-on courses with labs like they offer via other tools like Pluralsight or Cybersecurity. Is ISC2 considering courses that are technical and hands-on?
That is a great question. And I have to say, I've been with ISC2 for just a little over a year. And ISC2 has only been offering continuing education outside of events for members for I think 3 years now. So really very new to it, which was a bit of a surprise for me when I joined. We actually do have a couple of lab courses available to members. I assume associates should be, those are for associates too, not only our full members. If that's wrong, maybe we should fix that. So we have a couple lab courses, but we are actually part of our Promote Global Competence pillar is really about expanding the breadth and depth of what our continuing education offerings are. So you should see more technical, more hands-on learning experiences become available. So thanks, that was a great question.
I guess Melanie, Peju, Andy, any, I guess, you know, obviously this Pluralsight, there's definitely, you know, other toolkits out there to help with staying current. Is there anything that you guys use that you have found valuable in terms of staying current?
This is Andy. So my team just got licensed for Pluralsight a few months ago. So we're starting to build out our curriculum, and we have a couple different paths. So one path for what we call our triage group, or more entry level professional group within the team, and then one for response, which is for more seasoned professionals. So we're doing about 30 hours worth of training for the year, and it's part of everyone's goals within the team to complete that 30 hours. So that's what we're doing in my team around Pluralsight.
At Target, we have O'Reilly. I think O'Reilly is also a good tool to get those studies in. They have some labs on there too. I've done some.
Okay, very good. Andy, actually I got a question specifically for you. What was the motivation to get the CISSP after getting your various SAN certifications?
That's a good question. So the SAN certifications I got were very specialized. So they're all having to do with incident response or computer forensics. As a leader now, I'd like to demonstrate more credibility in just general security knowledge, and CISSP covers all of these different domains. You know, teams that my team works with a lot, you know, so I just really want to, I guess, learn more and then demonstrate my skills that, you know, I do understand some of the connection points that I'm looking to build with my team and other teams as a leader.
And to build upon that, why CISSP versus CISM?
Good question. CISSP, I think, is probably the most recognized certification of the two. I think there's data on this, but I believe I've seen some data where CISSP is by far the most recognized out of the two. So that's kind of why I wanted to pursue that one.
Very good. All right, I'm going to So to take a step back, there was a question related to if you have an opening for a cybersecurity professional and you have a candidate with a master's degree, or one candidate with a master's degree, another candidate that has a CISSP certification, which is preferred? And I know it depends. So maybe provide a little insight as to, how you would weigh those two as it relates to, prospective candidates.
Assuming that's for me again.
Yeah, and I'm going to help with that one as well as a hiring manager. So I'll let you start, Andy.
I'll start. So like you said, Mike, it depends. What's on paper isn't, the entire picture of a candidate, but I guess to me, it depends on what role they're applying for. So, there's different, and also what is the master's in, is it a master's of science, where it's more of a technical cybersecurity master's, or is it an MBA where it's more, business oriented? That might, sway me one way or another, but then it ultimately just depends on, the entire, person, behind the resume. So it's really difficult for me to answer. The answer is truly, it depends for the type of role and whether it's more technical or business oriented, I think. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that's sort of right in line with my thinking as well. I personally, when I was not in cyber, I haven't been in cybersecurity my entire IT career. I was in a more traditional sort of IT development role. And so I had my master's degree, but when I moved into cybersecurity, the first thing that I wanted to do was to build my knowledge of cybersecurity principles, techniques, et cetera. And the best way to do that was via the CISSP. So although I had my master's, making sort of that career change. And so I would definitely say that, if you are looking at making a career change and you're trying to get into cyber, it's probably better to pursue, and you're trying to decide, should I pursue CISSP or master's? It's probably easier and faster to get the CISSP than to go through a master's program. And it's going to give you the skills that you need to be able to hit the ground running. Now, when it comes to if I am hiring a leader of people, then that master's will tend to play a little more weight in that when I look at my leadership candidates, I want them to be a little more well-rounded, to have a better knowledge of sort of the business and how IT runs as a business. And so I will potentially weigh that master's degree slightly heavier if I'm bringing in a leader of people versus more of a technician, if you will.
Can I add something to that, Mark?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I have a master's in computer science. So that was an interesting question for me, because I'm like, which one carries more weight when I'm speaking to people? And when I'm speaking to people, in as much as CISSP respect to that certification, like you're saying, master's just carries this weight with it when it's like your years of experience, and you're like, okay, do you have a master's? So yes, you have a master's. I would say you should look at it as your academic goal, that academic point. But when it comes to continuous professional learning, I feel like CISSP carries more weight. So if you want to say, I'm always current with what I do, CISSP kind of says, okay, I'm current, I'm always in my continuous professional education around that. But then your master's is like a point in time where you say, this is my goal in academics. I've reached that point, but this is how I continue to learn. So they are kind of similar, but also different trajectory, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I would say that, if I was in a situation where I know that I'm going to, sort of move outside of security at some point in the future, or if I'm really sort of looking to be, CISO, once again, that's where I'm going to consider that master's, and because I think that's going to help me move up amongst leadership ranks, where that CISSP is really going to help me move up within the technology ranks or the technical ranks. Good question. Good and good answers. All right. So Matt says that he's in a data specialist in e-discovery field. He passed the CompTIA Security Plus certification. What would you recommend? What other certification would you recommend, sort of based on his role and his current Security Plus certification?
I can start. So I don't know enough to be able to give specific certifications, but I can tell you how I approached what certifications that I should go for. So doing your research, looking for like job postings for what you're currently at to see what they're looking for, or even in the next level that you're looking for to figure out to help that game plan. As far as I think about certifications as differentiators, right? So what's going to make me stand out in the pool of candidates? So I want to make sure that what they're looking for, I have those certifications. Also talking to your leader or company about if there's different things that they're looking for or gaps in the org, or they're looking for these specific certifications. That's what happened with the ISA for me with PCI is we had an immediate need and we needed to get that. So that's what made me go for that.
And in addition to Melanie, I know when I got my CSIRT, I was an IT auditor. So definitely that was a requirement for IT auditor to have in my field. So make sure you're looking at your field. But I would say be careful of chasing certifications. I know we're talking about certifications, so sorry, I'm going that way, but be careful of certification. I remember when I joined Target has a great program for CISSP. I'm advertising right now. And then as soon as I heard it, I'm like, wow, I'm going to do it, right? I was so excited. I'm like, I'm definitely getting that program. But then I took a check with myself, like mentally, was I ready for this? I just finished my master's some years back and I knew I just wanted to take a step back from studying, from reading, from doing all that and checking in with myself. I'm like, I just finished this. Maybe I should take a step and wait for the time I'm mentally ready. So big ups to you for CompTIA Security Plus. Enjoy yourself in that. You just did that. Take some time. And then like Melanie and I said, start looking at the job, start looking at the role, talk to your leaders, look at the role you are presently in, because I believe certification is about two things: what you are doing right now and where you want to be. So look at that and then choose the certification next.
Awesome. Thanks, Peju. That's a great response. All right. All right. So for those who may have joined late, we are doing our panel discussion around security certifications. If you do have a question, please throw your question in the chat and I will ask it of our panelists. All right, we're going to keep moving along. So my next question is, how do you measure the value of these certifications? How do you, after putting in the time and studying and you know, being able to have your little plaque on the wall, how do you know if it was really worth it?
I can start. So I think Claire mentioned earlier the credibility behind the certification. I think, you know, when you're looking for the different certifications out there, of course, they should have a rigorous testing process. You might be assigned an analyst number, so you might be able to tell how many other people have that same certification, whether you're part of a small specialized group or a larger, you know, generalist population that has that certification. They should have a code of ethics and be recognized internally and externally. So, it's, you know, it really means something when you get that certification. It's, you know, there's no cheating on the exams. You know, it's a hurdle that everyone passes, you know, the same way. I think that really kind of maintains the value. And then, you know, personal value to me has been what I've been passionate about. So, you know, I've really started my career out in security operations and incident response and computer forensics, and that's just been, you know, kind of a self-fulfilling thing that, yes, you know, I can demonstrate that I know these things, I have these skills, and, you know, it's more of a personal achievement as well. So that holds a lot of value to me.
I'm curiously, oh, sorry.
Nope, you go ahead.
Mine's gonna be super quick because it's not very detailed. I'm sitting here looking through my marked up version of our workforce study. And so I'm gonna tell you, you get paid more if you have a certification. I'm trying to find out by how much. I'll put it in the chat if I find it.
Awesome, thanks, Claire.
So I recommend you doing that value assessment before starting that journey. So like Peju talked about earlier, there's a lot of time that goes into this and you have to be mentally prepared for it. So you need to make sure that you're going to have that value. So, you know, is it that it's getting you to that next job? Is it going to give you more credibility in your organization? Like looking at those things holistically ahead of starting that journey, I would recommend.
Yep, makes sense. Very good. All right. So as you think about career progression, do you believe that it's easier to be hired as a subject matter expert in a very niche area, or is it better to be more of a jack of all trades when it comes to opportunities for growth?
I'm earlier in my career, so I'll take this first, then we can progress to the highest people. I would say jack of all trade. And when I don't know if anybody has seen the complete sentence of jack of all trade. It's actually a positive one. It's not negative. People just pick it out, but it's you can go check it out. I'm not going to go to that. But jack of all trade is more advantageous earlier in your career. So I always say there are three parts of cybersecurity I have been in. I've been in engineering, in operations, and now I'm in risk. And I always say that I'm enjoying risk right now. So if I'm open to another role, people look at my background and they're like, oh, you've actually done cyber fraud. You've done engineering, you've done DLP. Hey, Mike, I've done DLP. And, you know, they look at that and like, oh yeah, that means you can still do something like that. It gives you more opportunity across board, which is what you need earlier on in your career. As you get to the older part, maybe you want to stick to one, but you know, when you stick to one career path, you're kind of very committed to it. And in my career, I'm not committed to one career path yet. The only thing I'm sure I'm committed to is cybersecurity. I'm not going anywhere, but I still want to explore other paths. And I believe it's going to be very useful for me at the end of my career or in the middle of my career when I'm ready to be a leader of people or just like go narrow into some part of my career. But for now, at the beginning of your career, I would say jack of all trades is way better.
I would agree with Peju, and not just security knowledge, but you know, the fundamental IT knowledge, you know, as well, just, you know, knowledge of networking and you know, endpoints and databases, and just, you know, cybersecurity builds on top of all of that knowledge. So being a jack of all trades there, I think is really good. Starting out your career as a, you know, with an open mind and being a jack of all trades is good. I think later in your career, similar to what Peju mentioned, I think also if you decide what type of company you want to work for, if you work for a larger company, for example, they'll probably have a larger security team and they'll have more specialization within that team. If you work for a smaller company and you decide that's the path you want to go to, you'll probably wear a lot more hats and be a generalist. And you know, every time I'm doing hiring, you know, as someone that works for a very large company, a lot of times I'll see resumes where if they're coming from a small company, they're doing just about everything in security. But if they're coming from a larger company, they are, you know, doing one thing at a time. You know, they're on one team, they go to another team, but at least, you know, while they're, you know, doing something, they're very specialized, you know, in each role.
So part B of this question is, right, depending upon going the subject matter expert route versus the jack of trades route, does one path offer higher wages or more stability than the other?
I have an interesting perspective. I'm not a cybersecurity person. I'm going to take our entry level certification. So if you're doing it, we can be study buddies. But I was recently recruiting a CISO to report to me. So I saw a lot of CISO resumes, and actually I found that most of them were generalists. They had some level of speciality, but they really were generalists and had sort of broad knowledge and experience across many areas, which I love that that's what Peju and Andy said, because to me, that shows that they kind of understand a little about a lot, which generally also means that then they can dive deeper or find the people where something emerges that you say, we need to dive deeper there. So it's just an observation I had in my one limited search for a CISO, is I saw them to be more generalists than specialists.
Any other thoughts on which path leads to higher wages or more career stability?
I would say the more opportunities, the broader diversity that you have in your background, the more options you have from a career stability perspective. So if I've dabbled in a bunch of different things, I'm not in a niche that this is all I can do. Now I have a broad area of like, hey, I can go over and do something in this area, or there's something that opened up in this area and now I can go over into vendor security.
Yeah, I like that response, Melanie, because I was sort of thinking that, you know, and there's no right answer, but you know, I was feeling the sort of the jack of all trades tends to have a little more career stability, because that ability to sort of move around and do different things a little more easily, where the subject matter expert, I've sort of seen they demand a higher wage because of that level of expertise, right? And like I said, it's I don't have numbers to prove that out for you, but in general, that's sort of the impression that I have. Okay. All right. Next question, and I may need Eddie to chime in if I don't get this one quite right. But he asks, how well does experience in information/personnel security and SharePoint administration align with the cybersecurity realm? And I guess, Eddie, if you're out there, when you say information/personnel security, my initial question was, were you talking about at least what I refer to as physical security?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. I was speaking more in the OPM sense, like personnel security investigations, and also like the information security as far as levels of security to an organization. So yes, like security badges. I'm coming from more of an aircraft maintenance background in the Air Force, and so just doing background investigations and things like that in that realm, and then the general SharePoint administration. Just a little bit of experience in that realm. So that's kind of the bulk of my experience. I'm just trying to see how it aligns with your typical cybersecurity jobs and things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for that additional context. That helps. Okay, panelists, who wants to start? All right, I will. So my take is, so within Target, we have corporate security, right? That's the team that really sort of manages the any sort of internal investigations, with employees. They manage sort of the badging systems. They provide security, to our CEO and things of that nature. And we've actually brought over several investigators from corporate security over into our cybersecurity area because of their investigation skills. But within cybersecurity, for example, is where we have our insider threat program. And insider threat is a little bit of systems where we got to pull, a variety of indicators But then there's also this investigation piece, and we really have learned that, you know, those folks on the personnel security side that have that investigations training, they do really well sort of in that insider threat space. And so that is definitely sort of one area where I've sort of seen that alignment. And then related to your SharePoint administration, you know, O365, SharePoint, OneDrive. I mean, there are lots of security risk associated with those platforms. And so, you know, and you know, there's sort of Azure information protection and, you know, variety of information protection that's built into those Microsoft products. And so we actually work very closely with our sort of Microsoft admins to help provide guidance on sort of how to configure and maintain those environments. I don't know anyone personally that has made the move from sort of the Microsoft world into our cyberspace, but I could definitely see how they could actually sort of move into, you know, more of a sort of a vulnerability management and sort of monitoring role in terms of just the knowledge that you gain from understanding the Microsoft platform. So that's sort of my view or my take on that one. Any other thoughts?
I was just going to add at Medtronic, all things security are within one umbrella. So our chief information security officer is also a chief security officer, and so he owns both the physical and the IT side of security. And we've had people from the IT side or the information security side go into physical security and vice versa. I've had physical security people going into information security. Unfortunately, I can't say there's a direct clear path every single time, but it's very situational based on, you know, skills and experience and career desires.
Yep, makes sense. Very good. All right. Last question for our panel. And this question comes from Drew, who has his CISA, CISSP, CRICS, but there's now pressure to stay current with everything shifting to cloud. Any thoughts on cloud certifications and which one really has the most appeal as you think about, you know, this shift to cloud security? Obviously, ISC2, you know, has the cloud certification. Wanted to get your thoughts related to cloud security and certifications there. Has anyone sort of looked in that space?
I was going to say the one from ISC2 also, because we just talked about it. I think I see it on some of my friends have it, even when they are not in like just purely cybersecurity space. If they're in the cloud space and they want to prove they have some cloud security, they also have those. So I would say that's the one I know about. But again, we have a lot of cloud domain in all those CRISC, CSIRT, and even CISSP, right? There's a cloud domain that you do. So yeah, still current either ways.
Yeah, I would say that and I'm not saying this because Claire's on the call, but you know, that cloud security certification offered by ISC2 is the one that I see the most, is the one that I believe is most preferred today. And that is what I have been recommending to people.
The other area would be like specific to your org. What cloud provider are you using? Kind of like Claire said, is that would be as specialized into Azure, AWS, or GCP.
All right.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Melanie is saying, I know for AWS, the first certification in the path is a foundational AWS certified cloud practitioner. That's a $100 exam. So for the question earlier about, you know, someone that just got their security plus and you know, they're starting out, you know, an AWS certified cloud practitioner is a really low barrier to entry certification for Amazon.
And Nyanko posted several cloud certs in the chat. And so you can feel free to check those out as well. All right. Well, that is our time for our panelists today. You guys did amazing. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Melanie, Claire, Peju, Andy, thank you again for spending time this afternoon answering questions and providing your insights. I hope that you enjoyed your time with us, as well as really maybe learning a few things yourself today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great holiday. We are getting ready to transition to our networking portion. And so for those of you who are able to stay, we're going to basically break into groups of about 5. We're just going to do some random breakouts here. And we are just going to, you know, do a little meet and greet and, you know, continue sort of our conversation around certifications. And so if you have, you know, because I think when we move to our breakouts, we're going to lose the chat. And so those of you who maybe just have, you know, a pad to write this down, hopefully you won't have to write it down. But what I want you to do when you enter your breakout groups, first thing is just to do introductions, provide your name, where you live, who you work for, or where you go to school, and what you do in the cybersecurity space. And so do that as a part of introductions. And then after introductions, I want you to then sort of move into a discussion around the certifications that you have and sort of the rationale for pursuing those certifications. So let me say that one more time. Step 1, introductions, your name, where you live, who you work for, what you do. And then after introductions, move into a conversation on what the certifications that you have and why you pursue them. All right. All right, everyone. Well, those who cannot stay, thank you for attending. Have a great holiday. And everyone else, we will move to our breakouts here. We will not be coming back. So once we go to our random breakouts, we are going, once you are done, and you know, right now we're scheduled for maybe another 25 minutes for networking. But once you are done in your networking breakout, the meeting is officially adjourned. We will not be coming back to the main room. So if I don't see you guys, it was a pleasure having you all join today. And I look forward to seeing you at a future Cyversity event in 2022. All right, thanks everyone.